Okay, hi everyone. Thank you all for coming to our first UX at UW meeting for this year. We have an exciting agenda for you guys planned. We're just going to intro some things about introducing the club. If this is your first time here, even if it's not your first time, this is our first meeting of the quarter and of the year. So we'll talk about logistics and how participating in our club looks like. And then we'll do an introduction into UX design and what that design process looks like. And then at the end, we'll have a fun Figma workshop. So we'll take you guys through building something that looks super cool. So yeah, with that being said, go ahead and get started. So that's the agenda for today. We'll talk about UX UW and we'll introduce our officer team for this year. And then we'll jump into more of what is UX and the Figma workshop. So starting off with what is UX, essentially UX at UW is the only UX solely focused club at UW, and we focus on the UX design process. So that's focusing on the interaction between everyday users and everyday products and services. So this includes everything that touches websites, apps, and tech in general. And UX at UW is a community for students at UW of all skill levels to grow their UX skills and research skills. So whether this is your first time ever hearing about UX, you're interested in, want to learn more about it, or whether it's, something that you're already familiar with, we have workshops throughout the year that cater towards all skill levels, including like industry and networking events. So this is really a place for anyone who is in the space or interested to come check it out and join. So now, with that being said, I would love to introduce the officer team. So my name's Ashley, and I'm a senior in HCDE. I'm the president this year, and this is actually my third year as president and being a part of this club. So I'm super excited to kind of end, my last year at UW with UX at UW and continue to plan some more exciting events. So yeah, I'll pass it off to my other officers to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark. I'm a senior in HCDE, and this is my first year being on the board of this club, but I've been a member for the past 3 years, and I've really learned a lot. So I'm super excited to help plan events this year and help everyone else continue to learn as much as I did.
Hi, everybody. My name's Madison. I'm a junior majoring in visual communication design. It's my first year at UX at UW, and I'm really excited to just grow my skills in UX and, help out with the club.
Hi, everyone. I'm Xenia. I'm also a junior in VCD, and I'm also really excited to share all the awesome events and resources that we have planned for you this year.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kalpita, and I'm a second year master's student in the HCD program. And this is my first year being a part of UX at UW as well. I've been a member for the past year, but I'm really looking forward to bringing in industry insights and trying to bridge how academic learnings can be applied into the industry setting. So I'm definitely looking forward to all the events that we're hosting this year.
Okay, so how the club works, in case this is your first time here. So these are a list of some of the potential events that we'll have throughout the year. So all of our events are standalone, so you don't have to be a member. We don't have any membership. So if you miss an event or you can only come to like certain meetings, it's totally fine. You can pick and choose which events that you want to go to and have interest. And so because you can go to any event, like essentially at any time, we'll have events that cater throughout the year to different things that are learning about the UX process. So we'll have industry standard platforms and alumni speakers come in. We'll do workshops where we build UI designs. We'll talk about more niche topics in UX design and if you're more interested in that, like inclusive or accessible design, things like building a portfolio, how to build a case study. And in the past, we've done hackathons. And so this is something that our scale does, like small and large scale events. So definitely something to look out for.
Okay, so yeah, to get started, we'll just give a quick summary of the UX process. And so depending on where you are and where you're working, there's many different processes, but in general, there's about 4 steps: user research, design, testing, and then implementation. And each of these steps have multiple different phases. So for research, there's many different ways you can research a user. There's many different facets to design depending on what you're trying to convey. For testing, there's many different ways to go about that depending on your product. And finally, for implementation, there's many different ways that designers can work with developers and many different ways to go about receiving feedback on your work. And a big question people have is, what is the difference between UX and UI? And so we'll break that down a little bit. So UI focuses on a lot of visual details, such as color theory or typography. UX is a little broader, focusing on, how information is organized, considering the users and all of their needs. And there are some crossovers. For example, each of them require a lot of collaboration, a lot of thinking about the design and the product as a whole. And all of them involve presenting your work to various stakeholders to convey your work and be confident with it. And so we're going to go through a few examples just to demonstrate the difference between UX and UI. So in this example, we'll take a restaurant. You walk in the restaurant, you sit down, and you look around. Everything you see could be considered UI. That could be chairs, plates, utensils, the design on this pillow. And now things you experience could be considered UX. So how good the food is, or the lighting, the background music, or how good the service is. If you leave the restaurant with a good experience, that would be considered good UX. And now in this next example, we'll take a look at this button. So a UI designer might ask, what should the color of this button be? And a UX designer might ask the question, do we need this button? Why do we need it? Where should it be? How does it relate to all the parts in the car? So you can see there's a little bit of a distinction, but they work together to create ultimately a good product that satisfies the needs of their users. And so this question, why Figma? So this workshop, we're going to talk about Figma and go over a lot of the basics. And the reason we chose Figma is because it has become really an industry-wide standard for UX design. But there are also two other softwares that are used. There's also Adobe XD and Sketch. But really what makes Figma stand apart is the way you can collaborate with other people, since it's a cloud-based design tool. So as I mentioned, it's really easy to collaborate with friends and teammates. It has really powerful design system features that allow people who are using it for basic projects or people who are organizing entire companies to get use out of it. It has very good version control, so you can always go back and look at your old work and make changes. And it works really well with many other tools, and they have many different plugins that people can use to really take their work to the next level. And so Figma is a great tool for designers and developers, especially when they're working together.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into more of a Figma introduction and talk about how we can use some of these helpful tips and tricks and shortcuts to build something cool in Figma. So if you guys have ever been to any of our meetings before in the past or been with us, you might recognize some of these slides, but yeah, this was pulled from another event that we did with another great guest speaker that we had, Dorothy Kim. So shout out her for helping us with these tips and tricks slides. But these are some that even I still use today when I first learned these. And I think these will all be very relevant to whenever you're creating designs, and especially for our activity today. So with that being said, just some introduction into Figma itself and the workspace and navigation. If this is your first time ever seeing Figma, this is just some things to help you get oriented. So the way that it's set up, there's different elements to Figma that you can orient yourself with. The first is the left sidebar. So everything that you make, for example, like the different screens, if you're building something like an app, all of those pages will be organized and live in that left sidebar. That also includes anything that you include on your screen. So like buttons or images or text or things like that, you can find all of that organized in layers on that left side. And then you have your toolbar, and that's where you have all of your simple tools like your pen tool and things like that. And then you have your canvas. That's essentially where you'll see all of your screens and where you'll be working. And then the right side is for changing some of those design properties, such as like the text size or the sizing or the color of an image. And then you also have your prototyping settings there as well, which we're not going to do too much of today. We won't go into that, but pretty much if you want to make something clickable or have some cool animations, that's where you go to. So now for some tips and tricks that I think will be relevant for today. The first one is making sure you name your layers. So trust me, you will thank yourself later if you do this. It's really easy to just start designing, jump into it, and forget to name things. But going back is such a pain if you want to organize your elements. So make sure that you're naming as you go, because things will get very messy quickly. And especially in industry, you never know who you want to hand off your file to. So making sure that it's readable, even though you might understand where everything is and have your own sense of organization, making sure that if someone else were to look at it, they can understand your file easily is something that's really important. So an example I'll show you guys is we're going to look kind of in a different view, but if we're looking in that canvas view that I was mentioning earlier, you can see examples of how to name your layers. So for example, this is a bad one. You can see on that left side panel, it's named frame 1, super generic, and then everything else is also named generic. So when you have like, 10 different buttons on one page, it's going to get really confusing, and everything is just named exactly its type. But a good example is naming as you go. So we have this whole like component, so that's called a comment, like comments. And then if you break it down, you can see like this part is the comment box, this is the content, and then it has like the specific text. So it's easy if you want to be like, okay, like I want to change the content of my comment box, you know where to go or to look at it when you click on this. So that's an example of naming your layers in a way that will make sense to you and to others who are going to take a look. So the next tip would be to use components in a design system. So this is something that we'll go over today in our activity, but this is pretty huge, whether you're working on a school project or in industry. If you guys have ever taken like a design class or worked on any kind of project before, building something from scratch is definitely not easy, and it definitely takes a lot of work. It's pretty tedious, but especially like when you're working in the job, like a lot of times you probably won't be building anything from scratch. You'll probably working with their design system. So a design system is where all of a company's components are stored, and this is to have consistency within their design. For example, if you work in a company, they have certain branding, so they use probably a certain set of buttons for all of their pages. So you can just pull from their system, and it's more of like a kind of like a drag and drop situation where you can just pull the components that you need, but you don't have to build them from scratch. So if you're building like a school project, this is something that could help you. All you have to do is there's like a ton of resources out there. You can just look up Figma UI kit, buttons, or like if you're looking for icons, you can say Figma icons like toolkit. And if you just Google that, then I promise like a ton of things will come up. But yeah, using components will save you a ton of time. And today we'll be working with a very, very small design system. So I just compiled some components for you guys, and we'll use that to create something. Okay, so now jumping into studio time and the workshop that we have planned for you guys, we're going to build a Spotify music player. So this first screen here, we're going to try to recreate that, and we're going to go through that by using components and using some of those elements that we talked about in Figma. And I'll walk you guys through it. I'll share you guys a file so everyone can work in one place, and you guys can follow along and also do like, I guess, what I will be walking through, but you also have room to customize your own. So our first step is to grab components. So in a second here, we'll share a Figma file and you guys will have access to this part of the slideshow. And you will be able to grab the components here, everything that you might need just to make this first screen. And we'll go ahead and create a music player. So these are kind of what that process will look like. We'll first use that to arrange some of the components. We'll throw on all of those things, customize it, pick your favorite album of your choice, and pick a theme, and then you guys can really have fun with it in customizing a bunch of different things. So you can play around with the gradients, the drop shadow effect. These are different versions of what you could make. So yeah, you can play around with the background, the gradients, the text, and create something that's cool, like a theme around your favorite album. And I'll walk you guys through and I'll just create one of these. So if you want, you can also follow along. But yeah, some things that I did want to point out was that a lot of times you can also create things mostly from simple shapes. So this lyrics part is literally just a rectangle with rounded corners. Same with this album cover, you just throw some, drop shadow on it, or you round the corners of a square. And a lot of things you will see are made pretty much from basic shapes. So you would be surprised what you'd be able to make. So yeah. With that being said, we can kind of jump into studio time, and we'll drop the link in the chat for you guys to also work in the same file, and we'll just walk through that. Okay, so in a second here, I'll start hopping over to another file and we can get started in there.
Should I put the file in the chat?
Okay, so links in the chat if you guys want to come on to this folder. There's gonna be a lot of people here, but this first page, so it says tutorial, this is where you guys can grab the components. Make sure that you guys aren't taking the components from this box, but rather that you're copying and pasting it into your, like over here. Actually, to make it, yeah, just make sure that you remember to copy and paste over here, and then you guys can kind of work with me as I create music player. So yeah, this is all the slides in case you guys need to reference it, but we'll also build it again, from scratch. So you guys don't have to worry about that. And yeah, so you guys can also work side by side. You guys can work somewhere down here, or like, honestly, I'll create like a huge canvas for you guys, and feel free to kind of work in there as well. Oh, is there editing access or?
Okay, I just changed it, so I think.
It does work? Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, make sure it's editable for you guys.
Oh, okay, I think I gotta manually go in.
Oh, really? Okay.
Anyone wants to help?
Okay, we'll work on making sure everyone has access, but yeah, until then, we'll wait a second so everyone can make sure they're in. Okay. Yeah, so we'll have a lot of people working on here, but I'm just gonna start through and recreate one of the ones that I already made that I'll show you. I'm gonna do the Tyler, the Creator one. But yeah, anytime you are making something, you don't want to just start, you want to make sure that everything you're making is on a, or in a frame. So that'll be kind of like your smaller canvas within the space, and that makes sure that everything is like living in one component. So to start and make a frame, you can just press the F key on you guys' thing, or you can press the little, like, there's like a little grid or hashtag at the top in the toolbar. But yeah, you can see when you press like F, you can see like all the different options. I personally, whenever I'm making like a UI screen for like apps, I usually use like iPhone 13 mini. So you guys can like pick that frame and like, drop it on there or anywhere in this canvas. And then Oh. Okay. Okay, yeah. Make sure also if you guys want to like work, you guys can like do it in the add yours page. So if you look in that left toolbar, which is what we were like looking at earlier, there should be 2 pages. One of them is add your design here. So try to navigate over to that page. And then we can all work in there together. That's where I will be. Oh, sorry, I just realized I was also on pause for a while, but yeah, I'll be working right here in the add yours page. So if you guys want to follow along, you can do that. Also another hack is if you double click, I know there's a lot of people on Figma right now, but if you double click, my name, then you can also like spotlight or follow me and you can see like where I'm working if you get lost in the file. So yeah, so I like to start with an iPhone 13 mini. And then the first thing I like to do is round the corners just because I think it looks nicer. Honestly, there's like no real reason. So yeah, you guys can like kind of follow along there. And you can also rename your frame. So for example, you can just name it, like your name and if or like whatever album you're going for. And then I'm just gonna use this component. So this little square here, I'm gonna copy that and I'm just gonna paste it on my UI for now. And I'm gonna place it like a little bit above the center. And this will be essentially like the album cover art. And I'm just gonna put that as placeholder for now. And then I'm gonna grab some of these other elements like the player button. And I'm also gonna kind of drag and drop that as well. So I'm just gonna copy that. I'm gonna put it over here, kind of underneath where the album is. And if you want, you guys can like temporarily like change your screen, for example, like just to make it easier to see. So I'll just make it like kind of a darker color right now because a lot of the elements are white. And if you ever want to change the color of something, you can just press it. And then there's a fill button on this right-hand side of the panel. And yeah, I think it may be kind of slow because there's a lot of people on here. But you can press the fill and then make sure you're clicking on your frame though, because otherwise it'll change maybe the color of something you don't want it to. And then you can just adjust anything you want here. Okay, so now we're just gonna kind of build like the shell or the outline. So I didn't include the music, like the slider, because you can make that from scratch. And how you would do that is you can press, you can make a line and you can do that by pressing L or you navigate to the top toolbar like I just did over here and you can press line. And then if you hold down shift and you kind of drag out, you can shift makes it so the line is straight. And I'm just gonna do that and create that for my like music player bar. And then I want it to be a little bit thicker. So I'm gonna go to the width of the stroke and I'm just gonna change it to like 5. And you can kind of play around with it, see what feels or looks good to you. I also want to round it so that the ends of the line are not rounded. So you can do that. You can see there's a bunch of different options for that over here. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to change the ends to round. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm also going to grab this in case this helps for anyone, like this UI. And I'm just going to copy and paste it next to where I'm working. So that might help people too, because I like to visually look at what I'm trying to design. Okay, so now that we have a little slide button, we also need like to make it look like it's draggable. So I'm gonna create another circle and you can press O, that's a shortcut. So if you press O, then you can make a circle. But you also wanna hold down shift so it becomes a circle instead of like an ellipse. Yeah, so you can make a circle there, and I'm just gonna drag it in somewhere in the middle of the line. Yeah, and I think that looks good. Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna start filling in some of these other elements. So for example, I'm just gonna move these down. And if you wanna move down multiple items, you can hold shift and press each element and then just drag it down at the same time. So if I click this one, hold shift, I can drag this whole thing down. And I'm just gonna do that so I can add my text. Okay. So I'm gonna start adding some of my text here. So I'm just gonna put my song name, and you can change your size. I'm gonna make mine 18, and you can change your font too. So I'm gonna probably make this, I'm gonna choose Inter for my font. And I'm gonna make this semi-bold. Or actually, I'm gonna try a different font that's like has more personality. So I'm gonna try this one instead. And that's what I was using before. And then let's see. After that, I want to add my artist name. So this was also something that we had in the example, but you can change the opacity or the color of the artist name. So for example, to like distinguish, there's a heading and then the subheading would be like the artist name. So you can do that by making this a little bit more gray. That's what I did the first time, and that just helps with like the hierarchy. So I'm gonna make this a smaller size. I'm gonna make mine like 14. And I'm gonna go ahead and make this a little bit lighter of a gray. You can drag like, the fill on the side, which is what we were looking at earlier. And then another like thing that I like to do is align these so that I know what like the spacing between that is. So I personally like to use like auto layout, but I know that may be like a whole thing that we can cover another day, but auto layout helps me make sure that the spacing between the two are good. So that's just what I'm doing here. And I'm gonna go ahead and drag some of the other elements that we have. I'm just gonna add a little heart. And if you ever want to resize an image, then ooh, I think this one's like a little, the dimensions are a little stretched, but I'm actually gonna add this heart. I think it got maybe a little bit stretched over here, but I'm gonna go ahead and add another heart over here for you guys. But you can go ahead and use K. That's another shortcut. If you guys ever want to resize something without having the dimensions like be squished. So you can throw that on there, and then you can also just kind of move this around, make sure that everything's in place before we start customizing, and then we can kind of get into everything. So you can also pull some of the other elements. That's what I'll do, is just make sure that I have everything on the screen. And I'm just gonna pull a little shuffle button, throw that underneath, and then I'll throw on, I don't know what this icon actually is, but I think it makes the song repeat. So I'm gonna throw that under, but it looks a little smaller compared to the shuffle. So I'm actually gonna use that K shortcut and kind of make it a little bit bigger. Another thing is you can check the dimensions of the two to make sure that, they're kind of similar. For the sake of today, we can just kind of eyeball it as best you can, but I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure that they look pretty much within the same size. And then throw that on the other side, and I'm gonna put that aligned with the kind of that progress bar, I guess. And yeah, so now that it's starting to come together, we can start customizing soon, but I want to finish up by adding just a back navigation button on this UI, and I'll put that in the top left corner. over here. And then, so these three little buttons, as I was mentioning earlier, is you can create that from scratch. So I was just using that O trick, so I'm going to use like little ovals, but you can also just grab the component here as well that I made for you guys. But that's another thing that you guys can just make from scratch. So I'll drag that into the right corner. And then, yeah, we can get to customizing. Once we add our header, you guys can choose, like I just put playing now. And just for like stylistic purposes, I changed the spacing between it. So it helped me distinguish between the title. And you can do that in this right side here in the design panel. So you can change the letter spacing to like maybe like 15%. I'm just going to center align that as well. So that's all within this text property. And then you can use also in the top, it's like a align center. So that makes sure that whatever element you're in is in the center of your frame. So that's this button up at the top. So I use that to make sure it's in the center. And then I'm going to actually make this a little bit bigger size to like 14. Actually going to make this 12 because it was a little too big. And then I'm going to go ahead and make another text. So a shortcut for text is just T, or you can copy and paste another text box, but this will be where you put, your playlist name. So I'll just put like, my own playlist name in there. And then I like to put this one back to normal. So there's like 0%, like the spacing there's nothing wrong with it. Or it's not like spaced out more. And that just like puts us back to our normal font. And then, yeah, so now is like where the fun part begins. This is where we can really start to customize and get creative with our design choices. So adding in your guys' like favorite album and customizing some more of those colors is where we can go in. So I was playing around with the color scheme of the album that I was choosing. So I took this, and if you want to fill this square with an image, you can press it, and then here you can see there's different options, right? So this means that this rectangle is a solid filled, but there's also a gradient filled, and there's also an image. So if you press image, you can choose it, or you can just directly copy and paste an image in there. And that's another way that you can do that. So if you do it like the paste way, then you would press it and then you do like paste to replace. And that would make sure that, whatever you're pasting in there is going to be fitted into that item. So now that I have my album in there, I'm going to go ahead and play around with the color scheme. And I'm going to actually use like the dropper tool. So if you go to fill and you go back to where the color are, I'm just going to use the eyedropper. And I kind of just, place it anywhere on the like album, but I kind of played around with it until I got like the color that I was looking for. And you can kind of do the same to get it. I actually like this color that I got earlier, so I'm gonna eyedrop that. And then for the text, you can play around with the different fonts on the side. I'm also gonna make this a different color just to make it a little bit more dynamic. So I'll make that, a brown, and you can change any element or component that you pulled from our, component set and change any of those properties as well. So you don't have to keep exactly how it looks. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through and start changing some of these. I'm gonna go ahead and also make this maybe a black color, just like the name of the song and then the artist. And then I'm gonna go ahead and change some of these other icons to match the color scheme as well. So I'm just gonna add a different fill on it. So you can see it says selection colors because they have different colors right now, but I'm gonna make all of them the same color. So I'm gonna go back and just, I'm actually gonna make sure that I have consistency. So I'm gonna grab this brown color, this hex code that I have, and then I'm gonna make the elements that color. So yeah, the eyedropper tool will be super helpful when you're customizing whatever album that you're making. You can play around with the background, so you can have a dark one. You can see all those variations that I had. You can either use that, or you can, change the background and eyedrop it to, a different color, and then kind of play around in that sense. And then I'm gonna change just the rest of my elements to match. I'm actually gonna make this all black. Okay. And then I'm gonna create a little rectangle to create that lyrics section. So if I press R, that's gonna give me rectangle, and some of these shortcuts are pretty intuitive, like they're pretty much the beginning letter of whatever they are. So I'm gonna use R and then round the corners on that again. This time I'm gonna round the corners actually to like a greater radius. Like maybe like, I'm gonna try 20. I think that's what I did over here. Yeah, I think I did 30. So yeah, anywhere between 20 and 30 is fine. Honestly, for this part, I'm just gonna drag it a little bit up, and then I'm gonna go ahead and eyedrop this one as well. So I'm gonna do one more this blue color because I think it's, just to add some more color into the UI. And then as we see it starting to come together, we can get, a little bit more creative with this. This is where I started to have fun with also that sliding bar. So I'll create another line and I'll lay it on top of here. And I'm gonna put it up to the progress bar. I'm gonna create a gradient actually. So I'll go back to my stroke and then I'll press fill. Sorry, not fill, but I'll go to the stroke and I'll press like the color space. And I'm gonna click the second button here, and this makes it so it's a gradient. So you can choose different colors here to put into it. For this first box, I'm gonna go ahead and, draw some colors from this color scheme. So I'm gonna draw this blue right here. I'm gonna get another color and I'm gonna add maybe, this yellow. And then if you press again another box, you can, add as many colors as you want. So I might add a brown there. And then you can see there's this little like circle in the middle of the gradient. You can use that to play around with how this gradient will look. Let me make sure that the line is showing up. The line's like, I think we made it 3 width. So make sure that new line is the same width. And that is straightened. And you can just throw that back on top of whatever line you had before. And you can adjust the gradient as much as you want. I'm gonna make mine a little bit more adjusted than what it is currently. So I want a little bit more of a dynamic color scheme. So I'll just keep adjusting that slider until I get the color that I want. So yeah, something like that would look fine. And then for the circle, I like to put a stroke on the circle instead. And then I'll change the stroke to like 3 or maybe even 2. And then I like to change the fill so it's like maybe like white. And I think this just makes it look a little bit cleaner. I'm also gonna change the circle so it has a gradient on it. So I'm gonna make it so that it also matches the gradient that I have in the progress bar. I'm just gonna draw those colors again from the eyedropper, and then I'll make it look a little bit more cohesive. And then you can just adjust the circle in the same way, even though it's pretty small. Usually you won't be working on this like small of a surface area, but you can also do it like that. And then just make sure that your circle is centered. And this is another hack, but if you can see, the line is slightly over the circle. And if you want an element to be on the top, then you can do it by double clicking. But another way that I like to do it is just hold Command or Control and then just do like the right bracket. And that sends it, you can see it on the layers on the side. It sends it to the top. So that's like something that you can do as well. Yeah, so now that we kind of have a slider, I'm actually going to change this because it's blending in with the background a little bit. But I'll change it to like this color. So now that we have our gradient slider and all of our components in place, we're almost at the end. One thing is forgot to make this a little bit lighter, so make this more of a gray. And then let's see here. I'll move this up a little bit, just because there's a little bit or a lot of space. And then I'll move the rest of this elements a little bit up as well. Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to just unmute, or honestly, you could put it in the chat as well. And yeah. So I'm gonna just adjust some of these things so everything looks like it's lining up. I'm gonna create this to be round. Okay, so now we're almost done. Another thing that you can do is press the image and you can actually put an effect on it. So you can throw on a drop shadow. You can actually change the color of the drop shadow as well. So if you want to make something like in some of the other examples that we did, we changed the drop shadow. So it was like a color. So you can see if I changed it to like, a blue, then it has kind of like this blue radius around it. And you can change the blur so it's not as like blocky to like, maybe 30. So it has this little like blue halo around it. And you can do like different colors of drop shadow, and that might look cool too. And you can change the spread. You can also change like the opacity. So if you don't want it to be as like strong, like I might do mine to 50% just because it is kind of like a heavy accent. This just makes an element like stand out. Yeah, I'm liking everybody's UIs. I feel like they look really good. So yeah, you can kind of customize it to that. And the last thing that I did that was kind of fun was I just used some elements from like the album cover that I knew. So like I was using the album Call Me If You Get Lost, and they have this like motif of stars. So I just used that to make it like more customizable and like creative. So if the album that you're doing has anything that's like that, you can also add, like fun little thing like stars here, and you can do that little trick that we were talking about earlier, which was looking up like Figma kits. So if you're looking for like a star icon, you can like Google star like icon in Figma, and it should be in there. And yeah, so I'll just add some more stars here, and that's pretty much almost all there is to it. So yeah, I'll just be finishing up that. And then you can change the color of like all these like simple things as well. Okay. Okay, someone said, how do I hide the rounded edges at the bottom of the lyric rectangle? Um, so I think I'm assuming that you mean like maybe your rectangle is like poking out. And I think that's because if it's not like fitting in your frame, that means that it's not in your frame. So like if you look to the side, so if I click this rectangle, then you want to make sure that everything that you want to be in your frame is in it. So you can see like, I have Ashley, this is my frame, this is everything in it. So I have this rectangle and it's like nested into the frame. But if it was like outside, like, like out here, then it's going to be on the outside. So if that's the case, just click on the element you want and then drag it so it goes underneath like the umbrella of frame. So if you like were to present or like export this, then everything you want is going to show up as long as it's in there. Yeah, so if you click on the rectangle and just drag it into the layer on like the left side, then it should hide the bottom. So that way it's not like peeking out of like the whole music UI frame. I'm just gonna add this text. And that'll almost finish up this for now. But yeah, if anyone else needs help, like feel free to just drop it in the chat, or you can unmute. And yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna leave, I'll put mine like a little bit over here just in case anyone wants to like refer to it. There's also like the other kind of slides as well, but that's essentially the finished product. So this is a great design challenge if you guys ever want to practice thinking about creating themes, or if you want to think about like how to visualize these different elements and kind of play around with these simple shapes to make something look very aesthetic. Yeah, I hope that was very helpful to everyone.
Oh, also when they're done, they should put them in that frame right there so we can see all of them.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah. So when you guys are done, you should pop it into this final, like this very nice frame down here with the gold rim. Yeah, so we can see all your guys's, and we'll take a picture at the end of everyone's like finished UI frames, but hopefully that wasn't too fast for anyone, and hopefully everyone was able to take something away from it. So yeah, feel free to just finish up what you've been doing and then you can just drop it into that frame. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about the club, like UX or like design in general or like anything, yeah, feel free to just like, unmute and go ahead and ask. But we'll keep working. And then around 7, we'll kind of wrap up. And then we'll try to take a picture of all your guys' like UIs because they look super good. Okay, someone asked how often like the meeting days will be over Zoom. So, yeah, that's a great question. I think I forgot to mention that, but our events are bi-weekly, so it's um every other week we'll have these type of events. And right now, most of them are over Zoom, but we are looking at pushing more of a hybrid model. So, yeah, please let us know if you guys are like interested in that. But if so, like we'll definitely be looking to organize more of that. So you can kind of expect kind of a both in person online format. But yeah, this club is also very flexible to what you guys are looking for. So if you have any topics that you guys are really passionate about or really interested in learning more about, like yeah, feel free to just DM us or reach out to us on Instagram or anything like that, and we'll definitely try to make something happen. Yeah. You can move your over, so like you could just select the whole thing, like just click and make sure everything is in one frame, and then you can just drag it over into the bigger art gallery looking frame. And then another thing that we also have to announce, make sure that you guys are signed up for our email list. So we'll have like a link in our bio, so you guys can go ahead and send it up. We can also, let's see, can we drop it in the chat? Okay, we'll also drop it into the chat right now, so you guys can just like make sure you sign up for that. We'll be pushing out updates from us every week, so whether we have a meeting or not, we'll keep you guys in the loop on how to stay involved with us, and what we have upcoming, what we have next. And make sure that if you are not already following our Instagram, because that's where we're going to be posting most of our media updates, you guys can also reach out to us over DM like for any questions. And the most recent thing that we'll be launching is actually a UX at UW website. So this is something that will be can be used by people who haven't even gone to our meetings, because we'll have links to a bunch of different design resources on there. We'll have links to all of our past recorded meetings. It'll really just be an information hub for you guys to check out what's going on with us, and also just go for like UX resources and design things. So we'll have like different blogs and different entries for you guys to look at, like different UX tips. So you guys can also be on the lookout for the launch of that website as well. And we'll post all of our links very soon on our Instagram. So that's pretty much the best way to keep up with us, and make sure you sign up for our email list. Yeah, your guys' music players look so good. Honestly, the themes are, yeah, they're looking very good. So we'll like take a little picture at the end of everyone. Looks pretty good. Okay, well, that's pretty much all that we have for you guys. So I hope that you guys enjoyed that workshop. I hope you guys were able to build something cool and take something new out of that. But yeah, thank you all for coming. I hope to see you at the next event. And yeah, thank you, everyone. You can keep working if you want.